Good afternoon, everyone, to this CITS City Pool, a webinar on smart cooperative mobility to learn what public authorities from C-MobILE project have learned and are planning ahead. Today, our agenda is an opening by myself. Then we have 5 presentations, following which you will have the opportunity to ask questions. Throughout each presentation and afterwards, the audience are asked to type your questions in the questions tab that you see on your screen, and I will read them to the speakers for their response. The slides of this webinar will not be provided, but the webinar is being recorded, and the link will be sent to all attendees following the webinar, so that you can share with you and your colleagues that may be interested. So here we are. We go to the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So it's with the speakers of today are Tamara Goldstein. You will hear from her in a moment. She will tell us what we have learned from the CITS City Pool that we have started with this CITS City Pool in 2015, and then the C-MobILE project has taken over since 2017. And we have also conducted several consultations with cities. Tamara will tell us about that. Then Jordi Ortuño from the city of Barcelona and Jos van Vlarken from the city of Copenhagen, they will tell us what are the experiences from these cities in CITS deployment, but also about the future perspectives. And Pedro Barradas, who is a technical coordinator of the C-Roads Platform Working Group 4 on the urban CITS harmonization, will tell us what is the state of play. The closing presentation will be by Mr. Jelko Jefic, will tell us about key digital technologies. CITS is a key digital technology enabling connected, cooperative, automated mobility, interactive and predictive traffic management. We'll learn also what it is, and mobility as a service or mobility and on demand, and the relevance of all of this for the European Union strategies for safer, greener, and more efficient mobility. I will close the webinar with some concluding considerations and wrap up. Of course, don't hesitate anytime during the webinar to ask your question. Next slide, please. Well, this is the first presentation on the learnings. First of all, what is the CITS City Pool and what is the ambition? The ambition of the CITS City Pool is to bring together public and private stakeholders, so from public authorities, public organizations at local, regional, national, European, international level, and private stakeholders, whether they are suppliers, vendors, or fleet managers, road authorities also, private road authorities, to establish a truly functioning partnership. So bringing together all this, but with a user-centric approach. So this is the idea to have not only to increase the experience sharing, to increase the understanding, but also achieve better educated, creating new skills and for tailor-made solutions to enable and to deploy effective solutions tailored to each reality in each city. Of course, this will be done through interoperable solutions which are available continuously across different cities and countries. Next slide, please. For this purpose, so far the CITS City Pool has been integrated in a multi-stakeholder forum of the project, and as I said, to share lessons in knowledge, lessons learned and experience, practical experience, also from external cities from the project. Link, as I said, with end users, because this the main success is when really there is an impact on the livability of a city, on the mobility of a city for all the citizens and the businesses in the city. And we encourage an active participation in all events. So today is a workshop, but also we have organized training, site visits, showcases, demonstration, and all this linked to local, national, international events which are relevant for all the actors involved. So with the next slide, there is only just a short list of events that we have organized so far. As I said, normally twice per year, except for the pandemic when last year we had to hold. And now Tamara Goldstein will tell us what we have learned so far. Tamara, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, Giacomo, thank you very much. What I will do is I will give you some highlights of the city pool meetings we did perform during the C-MobILE project. And I start with the first one, of course, and that was the one we was located in Bilbao. Nice to know about this about this city pool meeting is that we had 3 working groups over there. 2 in Spanish and 1 in English. And the first city pool meeting we organized was to get some understanding of what is the vision of organizations working in CITS, what are the priorities, and also what are the needs and of the local authorities, and what do we see as stakeholders who we need to interact with during the project. One thing we did do in more than one city pool meetings, in several ones, is that we ask through several tools like the Mentimeter tool, what people do think. And one of the questions we asked during this first city pool meeting was, what do you think are the barriers for deploying ITS solutions? And the top 3 you can see over here are the costs and benefits are not clear, fragmentation of services, and lack of awareness of end users. At other sessions, we also saw popping up in the top 3 the lack of know-how and best practices. And that depends also a bit, this top 3, 4 on the audience. In this case, we asked this in the English speakers working group, where also a lot of cities were involved who are already interested or working with CITS. When we have a more broad audience, we see the lack of know-how and best practices popping up. And with this knowledge, we also did work on in future city pool meetings, but also in the project, like on the cost and benefits. In C-MobILE, we do perform a cost-benefit analysis, and more information on that we will give you at the end event of C-MobILE next month. The fragmentation of services in C-MobILE, we worked on the bundling concept, and of course, creating awareness by end users. We also learned things during our deployments in C-MobILE, and I also hope that in C-MobILE we deployed in 8 different European cities. So we also have new best practices to share with you, and that also will happen, of course, today, but also at the end event. And then we can go to the next slide. Yes, another city pool meeting I want to highlight here is the one in Copenhagen. We had an interactive workshop, but we also introduced here the matchmaking because what we heard is that cities also would like to talk to cities to get a real picture on how is CITS deployment, what goes good, but also what are the attention points you need to take care of. And I also quoted here 2 of the quotes we heard during this session, and one was really important, that when we move from pilots to deployment, this also means something for your organization, for the staff, and maybe also the knowledge of the staff who is in your traffic engineering department. Nice to learn is also that the matchmaking was a success, because we did do several matches during the day, And at least some partners did also interact after the project. A C-MobILE city and a non-C-MobILE city, they start interacting about the CITS deployment and how it works in one city and in the other city, also outside of our city pool meetings. So I think that was a good success. And moving on to the next slide. Yeah, interesting city pool was also the one in Newcastle we did together during the event of the Transport Technology Forum conferences. And yeah, we got there also some nice comments when we think about CITS deployment. And one thing is interoperability. And that, of course, is something we also address in C-MobILE and is really important. It's really difficult when you have an app only working on in one city and needs to be interoperable. And I think we hoped in C-MobILE we worked on a solution for that on European scale. One of the partners or more did also address that, yeah, when you scale up from pilot to actual implementation, that is not a sinecure. And I thought that it would be easy, but we see that, yeah, getting everything in the whole chain from all the partners out there, communication between the vehicle and the traffic light, with the service providers, with the mobility providers. In the Netherlands, we have a national approach for that, for 4G services. But to get our pilot into that one and to get everything in this chain, not be able to change the buttons, like say during the pilot, so easy as we used to be, yeah, was quite a challenge sometimes. And on the next slide, I go to the last city pool meeting, and there was the one in Helmond. And why do I show this picture is that what we did try is for every city pool meeting to have a bit kind of different meeting. And here we did do that by having just small pictures, not large presentations, and then sitting in round the tables to have really discussion between each other. And the topics here are topics you also see coming up in one of my first slides on what are the challenges, like on the business modeling, the costs, the benefits. Yeah, so I think we learned a lot about that, and we don't keep that for ourselves or for the happy few who is listening over here. And on the next slide, you will see that, yeah, we're working also on as an operational, on a guideline for operational processes. And input for this one was the city pool meetings, our experiences in the project and previous projects, but also we did perform some interviews to get a good picture of what needs to be in such kind of document, with all the lessons we learned in the project, in the city pool meetings. And now I will go through two topics of the interviews. And we did do the interviews with cities who already work with CITS, but also the ones who are not experienced with that. When I look at the experienced CITS cities, then you will think, we also asked them, do you want to continue after the project? And I'm really happy to say that all of them say, yes, we go on. And most of them even considering in deploying more services than they already have. So when you are now listening to this webinar and you're in doubt if you need to go on or to start CITS, well, we definitely can recommend that. On the question what to do and where to start working on, we see a difference in the top 4 of best practices or the best ones to deploy when you are in the answers of the interviews and when you are a CITS city or a non-CITS city. And that's also because we see a difference in the type of cities. And we can go to on the next slide where I can show you that. You cannot read this. This is not necessary. What you see in the top two graphs are of the CITS cities. The lower ones are of cities not experienced with CITS yet. The left table is showing the dominant way of transport, and the most, the first type of transport is the one in blue. So on the top blue, you see that CITS cities, it's car dominated. The first pillar is car dominated. In the table below, you will see that the dominant type of transport is the one, the second pillar, and that is public transport. And you see also a huge part in the fourth pillar, and that is pedestrians. When we look at the right side of the slide, there we see what are your mobility challenges in the city. And this is before COVID, to be clear. On the CITS cities, you see that they also have different challenges. So the first pillar is congestion, next one pollution, safety, efficiency. These are the main pillars for the CITS cities, and more is to say car-dominated cities. In the less car-dominated cities, we see also other pillars popping up. The most right pillar is the other one, and the second from the right side is the pillar comfort for pedestrians and cyclists. So you see that's more important when you're less car dominated. The thing which is not that much a challenge is the pillar who is quite low in both of them, and that's the comfort for the drivers. So we do care about congestion, pollution, and on our cyclists and pedestrians, but not that much on the comfort of our drivers. So that's also significantly to see. Why do I show this and explain this? Because one thing we heard from everyone, and also what we learned by ourselves as the city of Helmond when we deploy CITS, is that you need to start from what is important in your city. What is your challenge? So you cannot just do copy paste from another city. Every city is unique, and you have to see what is my challenge and which kind of CITS services will fit to that. And on the next slide, you see here a table also to help you a bit. These are the services C-MobILE is deploying. And you see also here the mobility challenges and what will fit, which kind of CITS services will fit to this challenge. And important is, see what is your challenge, local, regional, national, and see which services will fit to you. And then the next slide. My conclusions, I think I'm already at my speaking time, so I will not go through every one of them. But important, in addition to what I already told today, is when you do it, don't do it alone. Look who are your local and regional stakeholders and involve them from the beginning. We did do that in Helmond. We had a challenge with the big main road going to our city center with a lot of heavy duty traffic in there. So from the start on, we work with our local logistic companies together. Important also is not to do this alone as a traffic engineer or a project manager, but involve it in your policy, in your traffic management policy, and involve also the political context in that to have the support. Be smart. When you need to install roadside units, look if you can use it for different purposes. Altogether, and one last comment from me is just do it. Seeing is believing. And I think this was my last slide.
Thank you very much, Tamara. This is actually very concrete and very good insights, very concrete approach. Seeing is believing. Let's do it, and let's learn while doing. Get your hands dirty. And any questions for Tamara? In any case, don't worry, you have time to ask questions throughout. At any time, you can insert a question in the chat box, in the question box, so don't hesitate. Let's move to our next speaker, Jordi Ortuño from the city of Barcelona.
Hi,
Thank
hello.
you. Jordi, the floor
Thanks.
is yours.
Okay, thanks, Giacomo. And thanks for joining. It's my pleasure to be a part of this event and have the opportunity to present you a relevant use case for us as a city of Barcelona. Please, next slide. Giacomo, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's my colleague is going to change slides, please.
Okay. Okay, fine. I can see. So this is, as I am saying, that this is a relevant use case that we have deployed in Barcelona. So among the use case deployed in Barcelona in C-MobILE project, all of them very significant, important, like roadworks warning, signal violation warning, GLOSA, green light optimal speed advice. I will say that emergency vehicle warning is probably the most relevant case of them, the most relevant use case of service, because first of all, because it is directly related to an important city service, as fire service is, and secondly, because fits perfectly in our objective as a city, both in terms of mobility and technology. In mobility field, increasing safety when we are giving accurate information and improving efficiency, optimizing the driving. And in terms of technology, its scope matches exactly with our goals. Connectivity with excellent communication infrastructure, interoperability. I will say this is a key component in this kind of deployment when we are sharing data, or better than data, we are sharing information. I will come back to these points at the end of my presentation. So next slide, please. So moving, going deeper to the use case, which is clearly an example where technology helps us to make urban mobility safer in our cities and improving the safety when a firefighter vehicle is giving the service. The main objective of the emergency vehicle warning service available in Barcelona pilot site is to provide a warning indication when a firefighter vehicle is approaching by reporting to the users around it about the presence of emergency vehicles. So giving them the opportunity to give way in advance. So the firefighter, the emergency vehicles can identify themselves and report their position every second and inform other vehicles near it about their position, direction, and speed, even when the siren and the light bar of the emergency vehicle are not audible or visible. Therefore, the firefighters are the source of data by sending mainly the geolocation, but also the speed and the direction. And so with this information, the users knows in advance where the emergency vehicle is coming, giving time enough for giving way, even before they can hear the siren or see. I like to insist in this point because of its relevance in a narrow street or in a not open zone. So concluding this slide, the benefits of the service are very clear for us in terms of efficiency, by decreasing the emergency service response time, and in terms of safety, by knowing in advance when a vehicle is approaching you, you can give way in a less precipitate manner, preventing risky behavior when driving, therefore preventing accidents. I would like to share with you a short video, just 30 seconds, in a real scenario to illustrate the service. Can you, yes. This test was made in a open street, just to test at the beginning of the project what was running. And I was saying it was very interesting for us and makes sense for the mobility department and all of us. So in the next slide, please. So this is as a conclusion of we are very satisfied and happy. We feel very comfortable with this service, as commented at the beginning of my presentation. Their goals, mainly the improvement in safety and efficiency, but also because furthermore to have many technological dimensions involved, offering accurate and reliable geolocation in real time between two vehicles that are moving. What we think becomes more relevant is the role of data, especially the kind of data, geolocation, speed, and direction that we are provided from our municipal IT systems. I mean, we are sharing not only data but also information in real time, and connecting directly C-MobILE platform with the municipal systems. So making it clear the key role that digital city infrastructure should play in our cities. I mean, and it has been this use case, this service, in technological terms, a key point to demonstrate again that municipal systems can cooperate thanks to interoperability and telecommunications with external systems, giving and offering together, private and public, a better service to citizens and city. And last but not least, I would like to highlight the high level of commitment and engagement and efforts made from the different departments in municipality, in Barcelona City Council, involved in this case. It's especially mobility department and fire department. That it goes without saying that without them, it would have been impossible to deploy this kind of service. So I think this is all from my side. This is my last slide. If you have some question.
Yes, indeed. There are already some questions. I'm hesitating about waiting for the presentation from Jos, but I actually will start asking the questions already now. One question was about the cyber security of communications. How this is guaranteed in Helmond, in Barcelona, and or in other cities in Copenhagen, if there is anything that is put in place for that.
In the case of Barcelona, I haven't the technical details about it, but I will say that it's running with security and without any problem. The kind of information is geolocation that is important for firefighters, but it's not. I will say it's not personal data. How to say, you know.
Yeah. Indeed, that's about GDPR, but about security, basically there is a certification policy and
Yeah.
which is ensuring that messages are trusted. There are other questions which is about how the communication is done. If this is done with which technology, if it's cellular, and in case it's cellular, what kind of technology, what kind of so how does it work in the different cities?
It's based, in case of Barcelona, it's based on cellular. Only you need 4G. We are working in 4G. It's not needed more better kind of telecommunications.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, if the communication was faster, the service will be better. But this is a kind of service that don't need how to say 5G or something similar.
Tamara, Jos, would you like to add something related to cities of Helmond or the city of Copenhagen?
Yes, I can add something for the city of Helmond. In the city of Helmond, we are able to operate hybrid services. So we have some services operating in 4G, other ones in ITS-T5, and some also in both technologies.
Excellent. Yes, I know that services are running also on cellular 4G communication in Copenhagen. Is this correct?
Yes, we have the same as Tamara just said. We have both
Communication
cellular and the G5, and some running on both.
Very good. And actually, I will answer a question myself because there was a question about these emergency vehicle warning services, if this is only for the fire department. But actually, in the C-MobILE cities, and not only limited to C-MobILE cities, these technologies are going, of course, being deployed in many cities around Europe. This is also for other emergency services, also ambulances, police, and rescue in general, rescue services, everything which is related to emergency and which has a value in that sense. There is a question also about city traffic management, how this is, I read the question, alerted by the same signals or others can interact so that trip is more efficient, how this works for controlling traffic signals. I don't know if you wish if any one of you wish to make a statement on that, or maybe Jos, you have this already in your presentation.
Could you repeat the question again? I didn't get it.
Yeah, it's about the exchange of messages with the infrastructure, in particular with the traffic signals.
I'll come into that.
Center. Okay, let's go to your presentation, Jos, and if there is some aspects which are not mentioned, the audience can ask the question again. Please, Jos, the floor is yours. And let's hear about Copenhagen and cycling.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Jos van Vlarken. I work for the city of Copenhagen, the traffic department, and I work primarily with ITS and CITS projects and deployments here in Copenhagen. Let me see if this actually changes the slide. It doesn't. Give me a sec. There we go. So the question I want to answer here really is how can CITS data and new technologies be used to improve cycling in the city? We believe that cycling is the green mode of transport of the future. Ironically, cycling has of course been part of mobility for more than 100 years, but we still believe that it's a very accessible mode and green mode of transport, which we want to promote as much as possible. And we fundamentally believe that that cycling is not promoted via these motivations such as healthy living, or environmentally friendly motivations from the individual cyclists. We believe that is maybe the reason somebody starts cycling. But that motivation, if cycling is not convenient, then these motivations will fall away and people will default back to the most convenient mode of transport that's available to them. Mostly that's cars. Yeah. So that's the core belief, and for that reason we try to make cycling as convenient as possible for the road users. So let me see, it doesn't really change. There we go. We have some policies. I'll just sketch them quickly. We have a climate plan of being a CO2 neutral by 2025. Cycling plays an enormous role into that. We have a bicycling strategy that's also connected to the climate plan. We want to increase the share of trips on bike by to 50% of trips to work, of commuting trips by 2025. We have a lot of other policies, but just for those were the top ones. And those kind of operationalize, or those get translated into some service goals for cyclists. We had service goals such as 10% reduction in travel times on certain selected corridors, of course, a 10% reduction in number of stops. Number of stops at intersections are, of course, highly annoying for cyclists, because cyclists actually use their own energy as opposed to cars who use fossil fuels. Cyclists use muscle energy to actually accelerate after having been stopped at intersections. So we want, of course, to reduce the number of stops so that cyclists get a good flow through the intersections, through the corridors. This is, among other things, by detecting them, by giving them green waves, that kind of stuff. And we actually mostly achieved these goals already. So now we're working on new service goals coming in this year. So that will towards 2025. So that will be very interesting to follow as well. So let me see. So as I said, how do we further increase convenience for cyclists and reduce number of stops and reduce travel time with ITS and CITS? And what I want to say on this is that we have an abundance of ITS and CITS services already existing for cars. The market for cars is much bigger, much more developed, obviously. So what is our strategy? Our strategy is basically taking some of these technologies already existing or being developed for cars and motorized vehicles, and adapting them to the scale, the slower pace, the of bicycles, and incorporating bicycling as a real, like, serious mode of transport, of commuting into into traffic management and information in general. So as you can see in the picture here, this is a picture from some spring morning, I suppose, or summer morning. We actually have congestion on bike lanes. We have actually 60% of Copenhageners use a bicycle for commuting trips, whereas approximately we're almost at 50% of commuting trips, of all commuting trips are done. So even with citizens outside of Copenhagen are done by bicycles. So it's very good numbers, and it's the most important mode of transport here in Copenhagen after pedestrians. So it has a high priority here, and we want that to also be reflected in the ITS and CITS deployments that we're doing. So I'll change the slide. There we go. So I want to talk a little bit about C-MobILE. In the C-MobILE project, the goal was to deploy interoperable digital infrastructure to be able to have services that work in different countries, different cities, so that road users can get the same services without having to change apps and interfaces and all that. And that has been that has been very, I think that has been very successful in our case. We achieved that, and yeah, I think this also, as it becomes expanded, this will be something that's that the C-MobILE project will be remembered for. Yes, so specifically in Copenhagen, we have developed this multi-modal app. It primarily gives GLOSA, which is green light optimal speed advice. This is the speed advice to be able to catch the green light, therefore green catch at intersections. It also secondarily it gives roadworks warning, icy roads warning, and pedestrian warnings. I will primarily talk about the GLOSA services that we see this as the flagship service in a way for this deployment in Copenhagen. Yes. Does it change? Oh, there we go. So as you can see here, you see some screenshots. Oh, I'm sorry for the quality on the screenshot on the right hand side one, but the Green Catch app basically gives you the information to adjust your speed to achieve a better flow through intersections and whole corridors. The right hand side image, you can see the blue arrow there. That's your speed at the moment. The green field behind it is the speed that you can travel to catch the green light. And on the rest of the screen, it will give you either a plus to speed up, a 0 to kind of keep that speed, which is the case in this image, and a minus if you need to slow down to be able to catch the green light. So that's basically the setup. And then there is, of course, if you're standing still or if there's no way of you to actually reaching the green light, which can also be the case, then it just does a countdown. So that's simply the main functionality. There are also some built-in safety features. These are like there is an audio feature, for example. This is very important for cyclists because not everybody has a handlebar mount. But there are also features as if you violate the speed limit, which is not likely on bicycle, but applies more for cars, and then towards a certain distance from the traffic signals, the information shuts down, and you're asked to watch the intersection and the traffic signals. This is to avoid confusion and things like that. So this was the principle, the ideas behind, and what we were able to deploy here in Copenhagen. But of course, nothing is perfect, and there are always challenges attached to doing something like this. First challenge, of course, are you facing a global pandemic when you're deploying CITS solutions? We were, unfortunately, and the pandemic hit at the exact time when we were doing the actual rolling out for road users, and I can tell you it's pretty difficult to roll out a mobility app when there's no mobility going on. So but we managed to get some users and then and mitigated that issue. We also it took a long time to you need to make sure the standards are well defined and precise. We had a small challenge with that the standards as they were defined for GLOSA, for example, were lacking some features when it comes to cyclist lane, cyclist signal groups in the intersections. This was a bit of we needed to deploy a Dutch version of the standards. But all in all, we managed that challenge. And then, of course, there are when doing these deployments, you need to be very thorough with understanding the foundational data that you have available to build the service upon, right? And that they are stably supplied. I will come into this in the next slide. So data provisioning, yes. It's basically one of the most important things, of course. If you don't have access to the data, if the data doesn't exist upon which to build the service won't make sense, of course. That's obvious. There are some examples of this in Copenhagen, and I think in Europe in general at the moment. What we need is to be able to give the closer service. The app needs to be able to position itself in relation to the intersection, to know where it's coming from, where it's going, which signal groups apply to it. For that, you need a map message. It's called. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, how do I go back now? Oh, there. Oh, sorry about that. 1 second. Yeah, here we go. So this map message, it needs to, every time there is some change in the signal, the configuration of the intersection for that matter, a map message will of course need to be modified because it changes the environment, and that needs to be communicated to the user. So and at this moment there is no really easy way of doing these modifications. It's getting here, but it's getting there, but it's not there yet. So that's an example of kind of a data provisioning issue that might apply. If you're a road authority, you want to give roadworks warnings, for example, you gather roadworks data presumably, or we do at least, but how is the roadworks data structured in your public database? Is it precise? Are the reported starting times and end times of the roadworks, are those precise? Do they deviate from what actually happens on the streets? How are the roadworks companies behaving? This was an important thing for us. So again, data provisioning, you need to be sure that the data matches what's happening on the streets, and also that it's very precise. And of course, for example, from our intersections send our traffic signals, so to say, send up the data to a central server, which then publishes it for the app to use to be able to give the speed advice that we talked about a minute ago. And the question is the streaming reliable? In Copenhagen, it was for the most part reliable. Some intersections are a bit faulty. The communication might be a little bit old. It might go on 3G and not 4G, for example. And if so, can you trust that the intersection it publishes its state every second or less, for example? So these things, you need to have very high accuracy and precision in these things to be able to give the best possible service. These were a few examples, and of course there are many more, and this depends on which services, of course, as you can see, which services you want to deploy or would like to deploy. But these considerations are important, and this is the reason I mentioned a few. Let me see. So I spoke a lot about this one service. Each of these, I want to speak a little bit about our projects and direction in general. So each of these points, of course, could take a whole presentation in itself. But right now, we've just finalized development of a new multi-modal traffic model. It models all modes and even multiple modes within different trips. This is very interesting, quite novel from what I understand, and this is one way of improving cyclist convenience, is to of course take into account of them in the planning of roads, of infrastructure in general. So being able to model precisely what are the cyclists doing at any given point. If we have roadworks at a location, what will cyclists, which routes will they then take instead? And for that you need a very precise traffic model. We're deploying a new bus priority system, which takes into account the delay of buses. It takes into account the importance of bus lines and all other data such as weather and traffic data, for example, can be taken into account to give the best possible priority for public transport buses. We do have multimodal traffic management. This is something I mentioned in the beginning. We have sensors out there. We can make green waves. We can adapt green waves based on amounts of cyclists and travel times. So that's quite interesting. A new mobility plan. This is not CITS related, but it will change it's a general plan of mobility in the city. So where will cars be allowed? Where will they not? Which changes the layout a bit, and we need all these ITS and CITS systems to kind of support the transition towards the new mobility plan in the city of Copenhagen. So that's quite an interesting development of how classical traffic planning and traffic management and ITS, CITS all work together to promote, for example, cycling in a city. And we are also starting to work with automated image recognition systems to be able to count cyclists, for example, also cars, of course, and look into re-identification. This is a very interesting novel thing. We haven't deployed it yet, but we're looking into it. For this reason, there might be some interesting things with standardization when it comes to these very new image recognition systems, so that you don't necessarily become vendor locked, or that more vendors can work together to create a comprehensive network, for example, of these systems. So that's one of the interesting things we're looking at and we want to look at. I hope this gave you a good understanding of what Copenhagen has been doing in relation to the C-MobILE project, of course, and also beyond that, which direction we are going towards. As you can see, we are focusing heavily on cyclist traffic, and also in these ways that I mentioned, we are trying to integrate cyclists and looking at CITS from a cyclist's perspective, so to say. So deploying services that increase convenience and thereby in the long run make cycling more make cyclists more have people cycle more, so to say, more attractive. That was the word. So with that.
Thanks, Jos. Actually, there was a question which I answered myself, but in the chat, and it was about the question about the we know already, we know all that having a driver looking at the screen or the car on the car is dangerous in some cases. But this could be also the case even more actually for a cyclist. You mentioned that the alert switches off automatically a few meters before the intersection to allow the cyclist concentrating on what is happening on the street instead of on the screen of his smartphone. But in general, what is your learning on that from this point of view? The safety and the distraction of the HMI, the interaction.
It's true. We of course, as you saw, the HMI was very simply designed, right? So there is not much complexity in it. It's very you can kind of decipher it at a glance, which has been our kind of guiding principle. Of course, and the sound feature plays a big role. It's a very subtle sound feature. It's not a verbal. It's more an audio cue. It's a small
It's a beep.
small. Yeah, exactly. The beep and then whistle sounds. So
yeah.
So it's very subtle, and in this way we try to make it as easily decipherable as at all possible.
So depending on the sound, the cyclist understand if the device is to speed up or to slow down, or in any case is going to get a red light.
Exactly, or or if their speed is okay. That's the third one, and it's very intuitive. You don't even need to see what's on the screen. First time you hear it, you know exactly what to do. So
indeed. And how do you say that you want to stimulate cycling, make it more comfortable, attractive? But how about the use of the app? What is the uptake of this app? I mean, cycling is already something which is massive in Copenhagen. but is
Yes.
the app as attractive as much as cycling? And I mean, what is your feeling, your experience about the uptake and the interest of cyclists in using this technology solution for making their
Yes.
travel experience nicer?
As I said, we had the unfortunate circumstances of COVID, so the whole of the communications of the city of Copenhagen uh, have been focused on disease prevention. There have been basically no other messages than COVID-related messages going out from the city of Copenhagen on all our platforms. So
Mm-hmm.
the possibility of promoting the app broadly towards all citizens has been from a city of Copenhagen standpoint has been quite limited, restricted.
Okay.
That being said, everybody that has used the app, because we do have users, just not the thousands or let's say 10,000s that we had hoped. We do have users, and everybody finds it extremely well, interesting and fun to use. It's the first time since the first traffic signals came up that we're actually giving people a new service, a new information about their trip. So everybody finds it very interesting and useful and motivating. So I think once we actually do the large scale promotion, the uptake will be quite
So you're confident
effective.
you will continue this, and it will be a good success for the city who has invested in this, but also for the citizens who are benefiting for these investments. So for the
Yes,
social,
of course.
very good. Thank you very much, Jos. I hope this also answered, because you touched also on that, the question on traffic management. It's always good to hear that is traffic management, circulations plans and mobility plans are not as it used to be until a few years ago, just for cars, for vehicles. And maybe COVID has also taught us something, a different way of moving around as compared to the past. Let me see there before we move to the next presentation. There is another question for you. If and maybe this is something which is also valid for Barcelona and Helmond. With the pandemic, did even more bike lanes appear? I mean, there was an investment from the cities on changing traffic to mobility modes in the cities.
For Copenhagen, we already had a very extensive bicycle network here before the pandemic, but we did start new works, new roadworks. A lot of money was a lot of funds were set free, so to say, were made available also to stimulate the economy, and this was also done for our municipal funds. So a lot of additional roadworks were started, and also a lot of upgrades of cyclist lanes were done and are being done now as a result of COVID, which maybe would have waited a year or two or something like that. But not really that many large extensions of the network, because our network is already almost 100%. So, or at least a very large percentage of roads have bike
Tamara, I
lanes.
know that Holland is a country of cyclists, not only a city of cyclists, Helmond. But would you like to answer that question as well about
Yes,
bike lanes?
yes, I can do. And for Helmond, the situation is more or less the same as for Copenhagen. We already have an existing extension network of bicycle lanes, but we're still improving on that. And we would like to make more the shift also from private ownership of car and using your car to active modes of transport, and cycling is important. So basically, we are now also investing in new bicycle parts, and especially also in the long distance bicycle parks where you can have more high speed. We see increase of use of electrical bikes and speed pedelecs in the Netherlands, and especially the electrical bikes. They have a higher speed than most of the normal ones. So in between cities and also on the main bicycle paths in the city, we will have an upgrade to the fast cycling lanes. So with less stops, we also start working in Helmond with pilot on CITS for cyclists. We're now looking how we could do that best, what will fit best. So yeah.
So, and more connectivity also for them.
Yes.
Jordi, would you like to have a short statement on that as well?
Yeah, we have also, like Copenhagen and Helmond, taken advantage about pandemic, increasing the line cycles and promoting walking and other sustainable modes. So we have taken pandemic as an opportunity to push and to improve our this kind of cycling and other modes of transport. Yes, like Copenhagen and Helmond.
Excellent. With this, thank you, Jordi. With this, I would move on to the next panelist, Pedro Baradas from Armin ITS. Pedro, the floor is yours. Tell us about C-Roads.
Thank you so much, Giacomo, for the opportunity and the invitation. I'll try to be brief, presenting what we are doing in C-Roads in harmonizing CITS urban use cases. A short presentation and description about what Working Group 4 is about within C-Roads. We've started in 2019 our activities. It's a working group chaired by the Portuguese Ministry and co-chaired by the Italian partners. And I am here as a technical coordinator and to present you a little bit about what the work that is being carried out there for the past year. Working Group 4 is, as I was saying, dedicated to support city authorities to deploy CITS in urban and metropolitan domains in respect of the binding principles of C-Roads Platform. And therefore, we are aiming to push for 6 bullets that I'm going to shortly refer to, dealing with contributing for replicating the CITS specifications and the interoperable communication profiles towards urban environments. Of course, we want to devote resources and support testing to improve the cooperative services and their specifications. While doing so, we're devoting a lot of energy and time also to ensure that the program activities are well managed. Together with the C-Roads and the working groups, we are also promoting dissemination activities and events. And under C-Roads, we're supporting also an annual city forum this year. We want to bring the gap closer between cities and road operators under C-Roads and offer the lessons learned and all the knowledge that is gathered under C-Roads with the experience, especially from the motorway environment and the 10T corridor environment to cities, by helping them to establish and understand how to put in place the CITS services. So we're pushing for providing them guidelines and identifying possible standards extensions, and also assessing or helping to assess their impact. We're, of course, developing reports on our activities, and we've produced a first one by the end of last year, a comprehensive overview of the CITS deployment amongst the cities that are already partners within C-Roads, and 53 cities there already. Next slide, please. And the final mission, the final bullet points of and mission of Working Group 4 in these 2 bullet points. So the goal is exactly to contribute to build up a catalog of cooperative services and profiles, taking into consideration the urban and interurban requirements. We want to support and continue supporting the cooperation with other platforms related to the urban domain. So I'm really happy to be here with C-MobILE, with whom I've had established a long time relationship since 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm very honored to be here. Sorry?
You're correct.
Okay, good, Giacomo. And I'm very honored to be here again as guest. Next slide, please. So just a short overview of the kind of relationships we have with the other working groups within C-Roads. Of course, we put always our group in the middle. With working group 1 is dedicated to CITS organization. We've discussed lengthily during last year about organizational and business models, rollout, barriers and solutions to roll out CITS services in the urban domain. In doing so, we've kind of interviewed most of the cities and requested their support for the description of what we've identified as the CITS service chain. And this is the service chain that describes from a point of view of all the stakeholders involved in putting the service forward, how is the service chain linked in between them from the content, from the data collection point of view to the service provision to the end user in the end point of view. And depending on the use cases, depending on the cities, depending on the technological choices one makes, the service chain changes. So there's no one size fits all in this domain. We've also came to the conclusion that there are a lot of misunderstandings about the roles and the definitions to apply, and we need to streamline a little bit the language in between all parties if you want to take harmonization efforts seriously. So the report is already presenting some of those definitions, like what a CITS operator is, what is a communication provider, what's a roadside ITS operator definition, and things like this that come within the provision of the service in any environment, either urban or interurban. Next slide, please. So here you see how we've portrayed the urban operator of CITS and how it relates with the other stakeholders and how these services can be put through, understanding that there are data flows in between them that need to be ensured for these data exchanges to be transformed into valuable information and services to the end user. So you see a lot of stakeholders being here involved. We have tried to map this landscape into this value chain, and we've presented this in the report that is available for public if one wants to have access to it. You just simply drop us an email to C-Roads, and I am sure you will get a copy. Next slide, please. What I'm showing in the next slides is a little bit of the overview of what you can find in that report. So a description of the state of practice across the many cities in Europe and member states deploying already CITS. Next slide, please. You will see that there is a larger appetite in urban domain for I would say traffic management, traffic efficiency use cases rather than safety application use cases that are much more relevant in the motorway environment. And next slide, you will see that most of the cities from the status report that we've been able to present are the ones that exactly come highlighted as more related to traffic efficiency, traffic management features, and have the potential combination to be coupled with other ITS measures such as the ones that Copenhagen was exactly describing a little while ago. Giacomo, you can click the button several times because we're just highlighting the ones that are, thank you, exactly, okay, that are exactly related to traffic management and traffic efficiency use cases. Again, in the report, you can also understand how deployment is being planned. Sorry, previous slide. Being planned over the next years. Previous one, sorry. Okay, great. So here you have, oh, two more, okay. Here you have an overview of the different trimesters along the next couple of years and how deployment is being rolled out in Europe. Not all cities started at the same time. Not all cities are looking for the same use cases, but the report is already providing an overview of that European landscape in a table, timetable, but also in maps. And this is where I would ask Giacomo again support to click a few buttons until the map comes up. And you will find a lot of pages in the report here, organized use case by use case, and how they are being spread across Europe, so that it makes easier for cities to find their peers when it comes to, as Tamara was mentioning, dedicating some time to this matchmaking, understanding that each city is individual, but also that the use cases that are interesting to one may be interesting to others, and then we may use this platform and these dissemination events and also the contents of the work that we're producing to bring them together. Finally, if you go for the next slide, please. The stage where we are currently, so we're beginning to have a more thorough discussion on how we are going to group the use cases that cities have signaled with interest, and we're trying to cluster them to, as I said, to bring them together for this harmonization process to actually take place. Next slide, please. The idea is to have a kind of a cascade planning from that started with the collection and the implementation across Europe. That's the report we've presented. And this year we're going to try and cluster those in common use cases, try to shortlist the ones that cities identify with higher relevance for their policy goals. And then later on in the year, we are going to start exactly going into the nitty-gritty details together with the other working groups in C-Roads for sharing the specification and implementation details, hopefully to reach throughout the next year a kind of harmonizing common specifications for these use cases. Next slide, please. So next steps. What we've come to learn is that CITS is being expanded and there are a lot of interest, but still in a very early stage of deployment. So we're also liaising with other organizations, UITP, Polis, Eurocities, and we're going for a series of webinars that we've organized this first semester. Actually, we've had the second this week, and we're touching upon those use cases that, as I was mentioning, are so far signaled as higher interest in the urban domain, like roadworks, like intelligent parking, of course, traffic lights. Traffic lights is something that has been thoroughly discussed in the first webinar. You can do a lot with traffic lights. You can prioritize different types of vehicles. You can prioritize freight and distribution. You can prioritize public transport. You can prioritize bicycles and cyclists, of course, and also emergency vehicles. You can use that either to prioritize or to help smoothen the traffic with the closer requirements. And you can also link it up to urban access regulations, to low emission zones, to dynamic control access to areas of the city. So is a little bit, I think, in line with what Jos was presenting about Copenhagen, merging these two technologies, ITS and CITS. You can have a much more resourceful infrastructure and a much more dynamic management of the physical infrastructure, depending on how your priorities change over time. And COVID has exactly tested our priorities to the limit, I would say. Next slide, please. We're on one hand very interested on broaden this message and invite those who are interested in deploying CITS to come and work together with us. As I said, we are looking for organizations that can spread this message across, but we are also looking for the ones in the city that are really hands-on on the topic, the ones that are implementing, operating the CITS, that they have understood and went through the difficulties of setting up the infrastructure and understand what the benefits can be extracted out of that infrastructure at the same time. So we're looking for this concept of the CITS City Ambassador, which is a role for nominated from the city to represent the city, but also to help us in this harmonization discussions, which can sometimes be a little bit more technical and not at all general. In doing so, we're trying to bridge, as I said, together with the other technical groups of working of the C-Roads, and hopefully promote cooperation and synergies in between them. Next slide, please. It's just a draft, a snapshot of how this letter of agreement cooperation between these cities and the city ambassador looks like. And in the next slide, you will see how we are organizing the webinars. So we've had 3, so we had 2 so far. We are having the next one on the 18th of May, so please save the date. And they have been, as I said, dedicated to different topics. The first one, if you click the next slide, was exactly dedicated to the use cases I was referring to. And we had the opportunity to have UITP there together with us, understanding how public transport could be prioritized in intersections using CITS. And we had 2 cities talking about this earlier on in March this year. Next 2 slides, please. I think one less slide, please. No, sorry. 1, 2. Okay. This was the webinar we've organized 2 days ago, dedicated to hazardous locations. We've had Cedar there together with Car2Car and 2 other cities, how we ensure continuity of services from interurban to urban areas, how safety-related issues are much more relevant in terms of latency and speed in motorways, and how in urban areas efficiency and traffic management use cases become a little bit more attractive. This was discussed already this week. And 2 more slides. I'm just wrapping up. So as I said, please save the date for the next one dedicated to dynamically controlled zones, route advice, parking information. We're hoping to have Polis there. We're looking for either IRU or AirTrack Alice to be there. We're still hoping to confirm this attendance together with 3 cities. And I'm hoping to see you all there as well. So save the date and look for our registry link in LinkedIn in the next couple of days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pedro. And since there were only a couple of questions which I answered online, I would go, which in the end was also there for you. One was about harmonization. This is the main, one of the main, if not the main, objectives of C-Roads, C-Mobiles, but also in one of the key missions of ERTICO ITS Europe as an organization. I answered those online. I would move now to, because it's already 6:20, I would move to our last speaker, Jelko Jefic. Jelko, could you please tell us a little bit wider, to do the wider picture beyond CITS?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Giacomo. We are a little bit behind the schedule, so you're going to get an espresso version of my presentation. Good afternoon, everybody. Let's go to the next slide, please. I will tell you a little bit about just what we are doing in the C-MobILE project. A lot of discussions that we are having on how does CITS evolve forward when it comes to the CCAM, for example, when it comes to traffic management, mobility as a service. All of these topics are coming up now. So how does CITS relate to those? Are driven by the so-called strategic agenda. Next slide, please. So this is one of the key outcomes of the C-MobILE project. We are going to be looking at really where are we going beyond, not only as a C-MobILE project, but where are we going as a CITS field in the coming years, basically. So right now, I'm just going to give you a snapshot of some of the key elements that have maybe not been mentioned by the other speakers. Next slide, please. So the first thing that we need to realize is that C-MobILE project was written some 4 years ago. A lot has changed. The world has changed, not only because of the pandemic, but also because of the climate emergency that European Union, the governments, the cities have finally starting addressing in an appropriate way. This was not the case 4 years ago. So this is really changing the shift a little bit of the priorities, or starting to change. At the same time, in 4 years from now, the world is going to be different compared to now. What we have found out from our work, for example, is that 44% of the cities, and this is preliminary data, have already or are planning to announce climate emergency. So then it's very important for us to understand what does this mean from transport and mobility point of view. We also see that European Union, we all know this, wants to go towards full decarbonization of Europe, and the target for transport is 90% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. We also are focusing on Vision Zero. So these are big societal topics, and CITS field, like every other intelligent mobility topic, has to really address these challenges. Next slide, please. This is also why in the beginning of 2020, we as ERTICO Partnership, we were discussing with our public authorities, with our city members, how can we actually speed up the uptake of different ITS solutions. And the message was very clear. You need to go out there and understand the real needs of the cities. This is also why we have started the ERTICO City Moonshot, an insanely ambitious activity where we are aiming to interview 300 cities on topics of sustainability, data sharing between public and private sides, and topic of mobility as a service. Up to now, we have interviewed 110 cities, and if I remember correctly, we are interviewing city 111 later today, which is Santiago de Chile. Overall, 300 cities, 200 cities in Europe, which is basically every fourth city in Europe above 50,000 citizens limit, so to say. So it's quite a scale. You already see on the map the cities that we have interviewed up to now, European cities. This is approximately 80 cities in Europe, and we are going to add 120 more. So the map is going to be quite clogged when we are finished with the work. Still, what is interesting from the point of view from the CITS is really that our preliminary data indicates that some 62% of the cities, and we are not looking at them as a road focused or not road focused. We are just looking at them as all cities. 62% of the city representatives know what CITS is. On the other side, 90% of them state that they would like to learn more about CITS. So there's absolutely interest in CITS. In addition to these questions, we also have 58 other questions that we are discussing with cities. So it's quite a lot of data, which I will not show everything, but I will show you just another couple of slides. Next slide, please. So if you look at city priorities, we see that improving air quality is absolutely top priority for all of the cities. When it comes to mobility, public transport is another important topic, and decarbonizing city mobility is an important topic as well. Of course, there's also road safety, etc. This data is still preliminary; it might change. But this is where we are today. Next slide, please. When we are asking the cities, if you go back, please. When we are asking the cities about what are the actions that they would like to take to address the climate emergency, we see that installation of electrical charging spots is one of the preferred measures. Investment in public transport and bicycle lanes are some of the top priorities, basically. Next one. So when it comes to the new topics, now we also have a lot of discussions in Europe considering a connected, cooperative, automated mobility. We have had internal discussions with stakeholders. We see that CCAM is a natural extension of the work on CITS. However, it is not a replacement. Because from a lot of stakeholders that we are discussing with, there's a fear that CCAM, which is still at the technology concept level, while CITS is ready for deployment, that might actually lead to the delay of the implementation of the CITS. We see that technology-wise, CITS is ready. We can implement it, and we need to spread it across the Europe and beyond. We also hear from the cities that CITS, from the traffic point, CCAM, sorry, from traffic point of view, is more or less the same as CITS. From the city perspective, there's more or less no difference if a vehicle is operated autonomously or if there's a driver in that vehicle, so to say. There's of course difference because an automated vehicle will follow advice, driver not always, but more or less is the same. And what is also very important is that when it comes to CITS, we are showing now through the C-MobILE and other actions that we have done previously that we need to go away from the car-centric mobility only. We also need to show how can this technology also help us for all of the other modes of transport. Next slide, please. So this is also why we're discussing with the traffic management of the future. We see that CITS is an integral part of the traffic management of the future. We are defining the concept. CITS helps us understand better the real traffic situation and the transport and mobility environment. And really, when we are looking into the future, we need to have a wider integration of CITS into existing traffic managements, and absolutely more awareness is needed towards the different stakeholders, especially the cities, on the benefits of CITS. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit what I was mentioning before, that traditionally CITS, when I started working with it in 2006, I believe, it was very much about the driver, comfort and transport efficiency seen from the driver's point of view. And if you go to the next slide, we are going to see that that has actually changed. Now we are putting very much the traveler or the user in the center, and we are looking at all of the mobility solutions. So this is also why we see that from the CITS point of view, we also need to recognize this change and we need to adapt it. It's slight change conceptually, but that actually can mean quite a lot of changes in the prioritization of which services we are actually focusing on. Next slide, please. If you're also looking at the last point that I also want to highlight, and that is CITS and mobility as a service. And mobility as a service has been gaining tremendous uptake and interest in the last 5 years, I would say. And there's a natural complementarity and overlap with the CITS field. I do remember already 10, 15 years ago, we were in the CITS field providing services where we are providing information and ticketing through the CITS applications. That has never been a strong focus. Again, it was very much about the driver, him or herself, but there's still been some connectivity there. So key points for going forward with this work is really showcase the benefits of truly integrated work from CITS, from MAS, from the traffic management of the future. What is also very important is that we have to prove the benefits and linking these benefits to addressing the Green Deal, Vision Zero, etc. And we also need to consider cooperation of these different services and technologies to support incentivizing or disincentivizing certain transports in certain environments as well. And my final slide would be also the conclusions and recommendations. As Tamara said in her remarks, CITS really has to provide real solutions for the local needs. I would just like to add to that it also needs to contribute to solving global challenges, basically. The technologies are mature, but business case is challenging because we still are a little bit in this locked situation with the communication channels. I'm not going to get into there. There's still wide interest from cities to learn more about it, but it's all from the perspective of how can it solve our daily needs, basically. CCM is a natural extension of the work in the CITS, and it's absolutely not a replacement. Traffic management of the future depends on CITS, and we need to have a much wider uptake. And overall, really, we have to have further awareness raising in combination with additional proofs of benefits for all of the stakeholders. So this will be a very short summary from my side. I apologize for rushing through all of these points, but I hope that you at least got a glimpse of this important task that we are doing in the C-MobILE project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jelko, for this very speedy presentation. So actually with this I would close because it's already 16:32. Just would like to invite you to stay tuned. We will have a final exploitation workshop which is looking at market aspects, so those aspects which are missing, and this will take place on the 20th of May this year from 9:30 to 12:30 online. Thank you very much to everyone for following on, and thank you all to the speakers. Normally we would have a round of applause to all you speakers. Let's clap virtually our hands. Thank you very much and goodbye. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.